Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where imagination floats you softly into dreamland. Breathe, rest, and sleep.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. You find yourself settling in for the night, the day's bustle gently fading, as if a soft curtain falls between you and the world. In this moment of stillness, you sense the quiet promise of rest and a new tale unfolding. A story that will carry you across moonlit fields and ancient stones. Take a moment to feel the warm embrace of your blankets and the soothing weight of your eyelids. For tonight, you will journey to the mystical plains of Stonehenge at dawn. Let every muscle in your body loosen, releasing each twinge of worry and tension, and allow the gentle tide of your own breath to lull you into a peaceful calm. Inhale softly, exhale slowly, and feel the day's burdens float away on a gentle cloud of contentment. With every breath, you drift closer to this ancient realm, where whispered secrets dance around towering monoliths, and the world's oldest stories rise with the early morning light. As your breathing becomes steadier and your mind begins to soften, notice how the night air feels cool against your skin. Imagine a faint glow in the distance, a promise of dawn that stretches beyond the horizon. Listen for the subtle hum of the night, the comforting hush that tells you it's time to rest. This is the threshold of a new journey, a lullaby of stone and sky that calls to the deepest, most tranquil parts of you. It's as though the earth itself has paused in quiet anticipation, inviting you to step forward with a calm heart. Allow any lingering worries to float away like fireflies in the twilight. See them dance off into the night, leaving only a warm hush in their wake. You can rest here, letting your breath slow, letting your heart find its gentle rhythm. Now, with a gentle sigh, you surrender to the flow of the story, ready to float on its gentle current of dreams and reverie. In a vast meadow outside the walls of time, there once lived an old herbalist named Evelyn. She was a quiet soul, always leaning toward the whisper of leaves and the hush of nocturnal wings. Although many travelers passed her cottage nestled near the rolling Salisbury Plain, few took the time to knock on her weathered wooden door. She lived on the borders of that timeless landscape, close enough to the ancient stones that, on a clear day, she could see them jutting from the earth like silent sentinels against the sky. Each morning, as the dark began to lift and dawn hinted at its first faint glow, Aveline would rise to peer at those stones. She believed there was music in their shadows, an ancient lullaby that only the keenest ears, or perhaps the gentlest hearts, could perceive. Her life was one of simple rhythms, collecting dew from delicate petals at sunrise, drying fragrant herbs in the afternoon sun, and stirring her healing salves by lamplight in the hush of evening. Though she led a humble existence, Evelyn harbored a quiet curiosity for the stones that had stood before her. grandparents were born. The stories she had heard as a child enchanted her. Some said giants placed the monoliths there. Others whispered of druids chanting in dawn's first light. Evelyn often wondered if, before the sun broke the horizon, there might be spirits dancing among the circle, intangible but so very real. She never dared to venture too close, yet the whisper of Stonehenge was always in her dreams, a soft summons that stirred at the edges of her imagination. Time slipped along like a gentle stream. Day after day, she looked out upon those stones, and day after day, she tended to her herbs, her recipes, and her modest chores. Late in the evenings, she would settle at her old oak table with a dusty tome of folklore, reading by flickering candlelight as the wind sighed against her windows. In those quiet hours, she sensed a presence in the wind itself, as though the breeze carried echoes from the standing stones to her doorstep. She would close her eyes and breathe in the faint perfume of lavender, hearing in the silence the promise of dawn. Evelyn never felt lonely with the wind as a companion, the rustling leaves as a lullaby, and the distant stones as silent watchers in the night. One early spring evening, when a warm breeze began to chase away the last bites of winter, a curious dream visited Evelyn. In her slumber, she saw the stones lit by a glow more luminous than the sun, each monolith shimmering with soft, drifting patterns, as if ancient runes danced across the surface. She heard a low hum, melodic yet otherworldly, guiding her to step beyond the threshold of her little cottage. The dream ended as morning's light touched her eyelids, leaving her with a gentle sense of awe she couldn't quite explain. Over a simple breakfast of honeyed oats, she found her gaze drifting again and again to Stonehenge. The hush in the air between her breath and her heartbeat seemed to fill with the call of the ancient circle. She resolved at last to venture there at dawn the following day. Night settled calmly, the stars overhead radiant against a navy sky. Evelyn prepared her baskets and walking stick, though she wasn't sure what she might need. As she braided lavender stems into her hair, the sweet fragrance brought a sense of courage and clarity. Candlelight flickered on the walls of her cottage, casting gentle, dancing shadows that lulled her mind into a serene place. Sleep came easily, carrying her on a wave of anticipation. Through the dreamy depths, she felt the stones calling more insistently, urging her to come and bear witness. When Evelyn woke in the blue hour, the sky was still draped in soft darkness. She quietly laced her sturdy boots, slipped on a cloak against the chill, and took up her walking stick, stepping onto a narrow path of dew-kissed grass. The hush of early morning enveloped her, a stillness rarely experienced by those who sleep until the sun is high. Even the chirping birds held their song in respectful silence, as though something sacred was about to unfold. The grass bowed beneath her footsteps, shimmering with droplets that caught the moon's final rays. Pale clouds drifted in the sky, trailing away from a thin crescent moon that would soon surrender the heavens to the dawn. Here, outside her cottage, the world seemed suspended in a waiting hush. Each small sound, her breath, the crunch of gravel underfoot, was gentle as a feather, yet magnified by the silence. With each step, the looming silhouettes of Stonehenge grew more distinct, the dark outlines of the stones rising like sleeping giants. A sense of tranquility mixed with quiet wonder took root in Avelin's chest. She approached the prehistoric circle just as the horizon began to blush with the faintest pink. The stones stood tall, forming their ancient patterns, silent and steadfast through centuries of wind and weather. Drawing closer, she noticed how the open spaces between the monoliths framed the distant sky, creating windows that looked out upon the blossoming morning light. That magical hush she had sensed before felt almost tangible now. The earth beneath her feet seemed to hum with anticipation, like a harp string waiting to be plucked. She let her hand drift to the warm surface of the nearest stone, marveling at its texture, rugged and cool, carrying the memory of countless sunrises. Then, a whisper. Not a voice, yet somehow a sound that threaded through her thoughts. It felt like a gentle stirring of wind, or a hush that resonated in her heart rather than in her ears. She closed her eyes and listened with all her being. There it was again, a faint vibration in the air, like music carried on the breath of dawn. With each passing moment, that whisper grew more insistent, urging her to move farther into the circle. She wove her way between the stones, stepping carefully on the thick grass as the sky brightened from a pale blush to a soft gold at the edges. Inside the circle's heart, she paused, turned eastward, and watched the horizon. The sun's first rays crested a distant line of trees, spilling golden light across the plain. In that instant, the shadows of the stone seemed to stretch and shift, dark silhouettes moving across the dew-soaked earth. She could have sworn that if she listened closely enough, the stones themselves exhaled a soft sigh of greeting, as though they had been waiting for this moment of illumination all through the night. Avelin's heart fluttered in her chest with gentle excitement. She felt neither fear nor confusion, only a deep sense of awe and a comforting sense of belonging. The songs and stories of her childhood came tumbling back, tales of fae dancing in moonlit circles, of guardians who watched over ancient sites. She remembered stories of hidden doorways that opened at dawn, leading to realms beyond time. Could Stonehenge hold such a secret? She placed a hand over her chest, quieting her breathing, and gazed around. The inner ring of the circle was awash in the fresh light of dawn, revealing flecks of lichen and shadows in every groove of the stone. She noticed small cracks in the monoliths, each one seeming to form a pattern, like lines of an ancient script waiting to be read. Then came a breeze so soft it was almost imperceptible, carrying with it the scent of morning dew and distant heather. It encircled her in a cool embrace, almost as though it guided her gently toward one particular stone on the far side of the circle. She walked with unhurried steps, each blade of grass springy underfoot, until she stood before that specific monolith. In the soft glow of morning, she saw a faint mark, a swirl etched into the stone's surface. Aveline's fingers brushed lightly against the swirling groove, tracing its path. The whisper that had been tugging at her thoughts grew stronger, resonating in her bones now. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and listened. In that moment, the hush of Stonehenge enveloped her completely. Every sense was heightened. She could taste the morning air on her lips, feel the gentle warmth of the rising sun on her face, and hear the melodic hush that felt as if it emanated from the very center of the earth. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The swirl on the stone glowed a delicate gold, pulsing with a subtle radiance. She blinked, unsure if she was still dreaming, but the gentle shimmer remained. Entranced, she laid her palm flat against the mark. A quiet ripple seemed to run up her arm, not painful, but filled with an electric hush, a vibration that resonated with the beating of her heart. The stone beneath her hand felt alive, humming with an ancient power. It was as if the boundary between her world and whatever lay hidden within the stones grew thin. Her breath caught in her throat as the swirling mark brightened slightly, and she felt a soft breeze swirl around her ankles. The sun inched higher, golden rays sliding across the stone circle. The hush transformed into a gentle melody, a faint chorus of voices rising like the breeze, distant, ethereal, as though they emerged from long-forgotten stories. Aveline glanced around. The circle seemed to hum in response to the rising sun, the stones themselves glimmering in an unearthly way. She watched as a small cluster of morning mist drifted into the circle from the surrounding fields, the tendrils of fog curling around the monoliths. In the delicate haze, she thought she saw shapes moving, graceful outlines that danced at the edges of her vision. Then, just as suddenly, they were gone. Only the mist remained, swirling in the dawn light. Somehow she felt no alarm, only a gentle wonder, as if these fleeting images had come to greet her and were now bowing out, leaving her with the soft reverie of dawn. The hush in the air grew quieter, the swirling mark on the stone dimming back to its normal, weathered grey. All that remained was the faint glow of the morning sun reflected on the stones. She sighed, unable to fully grasp the magnitude of the moment, but feeling its profound peace. She sat down in the circle's center, cross-legged on the cool grass, letting the early rays bathe her face. In that stillness, she reflected on the swirling mark, the breeze, and the sense of ancient voices woven into the dawn's quiet. There was magic here, though gentle and elusive, like a lullaby woven into the wind, only perceptible to those who listened with an open heart. As the day began to brighten, she heard the first morning birds begin to sing. Their sweet notes brought a comforting normalcy to the extraordinary moment she had just experienced. She saw a small robin hop around the edge of the circle, pecking at the ground for its breakfast, utterly at ease in the sacred space. She smiled softly, feeling an immense gratitude. Nature itself seemed to bless the ancient stones, binding time, earth, and sky together in a serene tapestry of dawn light. If this place was the work of distant giants or old-world druids, their intent felt as pure as the morning, a wish to unite heaven and earth in a gentle harmony, an invitation to sit and contemplate the grand dance of existence. Before long, the sun had risen fully, casting a warm glow across the rolling plains. The hush of Stonehenge now gave way to the subtle stirrings of day. Aveline knew her life would not be quite the same. She had witnessed something ancient and profound, a fleeting glimpse into a realm where the stones still whispered the world's first lullaby. Rising to her feet, she gently brushed off her skirts and gave a parting glance to the circle, her heart brimming with gratitude. She quietly bowed her head in thanks, acknowledging that the circle had shared its secrets with her, if only for a moment. She turned to walk away when she noticed a small, circular stone lying at the foot of one of the monoliths. Smooth and dark, with a faint swirl pattern carved into its surface, it glistened in the dew. Kneeling, Aveline carefully picked it up, sensing the same subtle hum, though much softer now, resonating in her palm. She held it for a time, uncertain, then sensed a gentle permission in the morning air, as if the circle itself offered the stone as a token of remembrance. Tucking it into a pocket near her heart, she made her way back across the meadow, each step guided by the soft glow of a newly risen sun. When Aveline returned to her cottage, she brewed a pot of chamomile tea, sweetened it with honey, and sipped in reflective silence at her small oak table. The memory of the swirling mark still danced behind her eyes whenever she blinked. She felt an urge to preserve the sensation, perhaps in the pages of her diary, or by crafting a small ointment imbued with the energies of the dawn. Aveline gathered some of the morning dew she had collected earlier, mixing it with dried lavender blossoms, a pinch of ground rosemary, and a sliver of beeswax. She stirred the mixture carefully in a clay bowl, humming softly to herself. If the stones carried whispers of ancient knowledge, perhaps this little salve could hold a memory of that gentle dawn for those who sought its comfort. Over the following days, the stone from the circle stayed in Aveline's pocket, a constant reminder of that delicate hum. She found her dreams becoming more vivid, soft swirls of color, echoes of song, and whispered words she couldn't quite decipher. Each morning, she would step outside before the sun rose, feeling drawn again to that ancient circle. She never witnessed the same glow in the swirl, nor did she hear the same hush echoing in her ears. Yet she felt an invisible thread connecting her cottage to the stones, and in that distance, she detected a patient invitation, reminding her that the circle was ever present, waiting for those who listened. One afternoon, as she tended her herb garden, a traveler appeared on the narrow path leading to her door. His name was Elias, a soft-spoken pilgrim searching for solace and direction. He had heard whispers of a wise herbalist living near Stonehenge, someone whose potions and advice could heal not just the body, but the spirit. He arrived, cloak dusty from the road, eyes weary with longing. Aveline ushered him in, gave him water, and offered a seat by the warm hearth. He confessed his restlessness, the ache of lost nights, and the yearning for meaning. Aveline listened kindly, feeling a gentle pang of sympathy for the wandering soul. Over a fragrant cup of chamomile tea, Elias revealed how he had traveled from distant lands, guided only by a dream of standing stones. He spoke of nights spent under foreign skies, the same vision returning to him. A great circle of towering rocks, bathed in early morning light. His dream led him here, to the Salisbury Plain, in search of a peace he had never known. Aveline's heart resonated with understanding. Quietly, she took from her pocket the small stone with the swirling mark and placed it on the table before him. He stared in wonder, his eyes lighting with recognition, as though it echoed his own dreams. That evening, the two sat by lamplight, sharing stories of distant worlds and half-remembered myths. The flickering flame cast dancing shadows on the wooden walls, weaving patterns that reminded them both of that faint swirl etched into the ancient monolith. Aveline spoke of her sunrise encounter, of the gentle hum that seemed to bridge worlds. Elias listened with rapt attention, his tired features relaxing under the soothing lull of her voice. It became clear that he, too, needed to witness that hush of dawn for himself, to stand in the circle and feel the first rays of the sun illuminate his path. With Aveline's blessing, he prepared to spend the night nearby, resting his weary bones so he could greet the stones at first light. Night came softly, wrapping the cottage in a blanket of stars. Aveline slipped into a deep sleep where the dream returned in fleeting images, soft glows, swirling patterns, and a sense of ancient guardians standing watch over the plains. In the twilight of her dreams, she glimpsed Elias at the stone circle, kneeling in reverence while dawn touched the horizon with pale gold. She woke to find the sky still dark, the hush of the early morning calling them both outside. Together they walked across the dew-covered meadow. The air was cool against their cheeks, and the moon still clung to the western sky, a slender sliver disappearing behind drifting clouds. Stonehenge rose ahead, silhouetted against the faint glow of impending sunrise. The two of them stepped quietly, boots leaving soft impressions in the damp grass. Upon reaching the circle, they found the stones silent as always, yet alive with an energy neither could deny. Elias paused, head bowed, as though paying silent respect to these ancient monoliths. The horizon lightened minute by minute, gold seeping into the sky. The circle slowly filled with the dawn's glow, and as the first gleam of sunlight reached out, Elias approached one of the great stones, guided as Aveline had been by a gentle intuition. Aveline watched from a short distance away, her heart fluttering with empathy. She recognized the subtle shift in the air, the intangible hush that signals something wondrous is about to happen. The swirl on another stone flickered softly at the edges. Elias let out a quiet gasp, his hand trembling as he reached for the pattern. Aveline saw his expression shift from uncertainty to awe. Though she stood yards away, she felt a shared resonance, as if they both stood on the threshold of a hidden realm. An early morning breeze swept through, carrying the fresh scent of grass and something beyond the ordinary, a fragrance like wild blossoms that bloom only in moonlight. The breeze circled Elias, rustling his cloak before wending its way to Aveline. The faint swirl on the stones shimmered again, then fell quiet under the strengthening light of day. Elias closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. When he turned to face Aveline, his gaze was brimming with gratitude. Though no words were spoken, a profound sense of peace settled between them, like a gentle hush that recognized all fears and soothed them into silence. They spent the morning wandering together around the circle, talking softly of the ancient ones who may have raised the stones, of the cosmic alignments that marked solstice and equinox, and of the intangible magic that time cannot erase. It was as though the stones themselves beckoned them to explore each nook, each angle, each interplay of shadow and light. Their footsteps were measured and light, as if any jarring movement might break the delicate spell. Slowly, the sun rose high, casting a bright beam into the center of the circle. Its warmth enveloped them both, filling their chests with calm and wonder. In that shared stillness, their burdens melted away, replaced by a simple, reassuring truth. They stood within something ancient and kind. At midday, the two returned to Aveline's cottage. She prepared a meal of hearty soup and freshly baked bread, garnished with herbs from her garden. They ate without haste, savoring each spoonful, letting the peaceful afterglow of their sunrise encounter linger. Elias spoke of his future travels, of returning home with a renewed heart. Aveline smiled, a quiet understanding lighting her eyes. Though they had only just met, an unspoken bond held them together, a friendship woven in the silent tapestry of dawn and stone. In the days that followed, Elias helped Aveline with chores, gathering herbs and water, while she taught him about the healing properties of each plant. At dusk, they would sit outside, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon, painting the clouds with gentle shades of peach and lavender. The hush that arrived with each evening felt like a soft echo of the dawn's magic. Sometimes they would speak of mysteries beyond their comprehension, letting imagination and dreams mingle with the starlight. Other times, they simply let the silence cradle them, content in the knowledge that some wonders flourish best in hushed reverence. When Elias announced that it was time for him to continue his journey, he did so with an expression of wistful gratitude. Aveline gifted him a small pouch of herbs and a tiny flask of her dawn-infused salve. She told him that whenever he felt lost, he could open the pouch and breathe in the scent of lavender and rosemary, recalling the hush of Stonehenge at dawn. Together, they walked toward the monoliths one last time, standing at the edge of the circle under a sky brushed with the pastel colors of a setting sun. Aveline placed a hand over the pocket where she kept the stone with the swirling mark, silently thanking the guardians of that ancient place for bringing her a friend and deepening her understanding. Elias placed his palm against one of the stones, offering a final moment of connection. Though they stood in silence, it felt like a heartfelt farewell, not just to the place, but to the hidden realm that had revealed itself to them. A gentle wind stirred, and in that fleeting breeze, there was a whisper of blessing or goodbye. Elias bowed his head, then stepped back. He and Aveline shared a gentle smile. With a final wave, he walked across the meadow, disappearing beyond the rolling plains, the sky above him bathed in twilight's golden hues. Over time, Aveline continued her humble life near the Salisbury Plain. She healed neighbors with her herbal remedies and comforted wanderers with patient counsel. Yet, a subtle shift had taken place within her. Each dawn, she would open her window to greet the stones, feeling a deep kinship that transcended ordinary understanding. Now and then, she thought of Elias, wondering if he still carried the hush of that first sunrise within him, wondering if he found the peace he had sought. In her heart, she felt certain he had. Peace born of quiet wonder, gently nurtured by a place that bridged the timeless distance between earth and sky. Seasons passed, each one painting Stonehenge with its own palette of beauty. In spring, blossoms erupted across the meadow. In summer, the grass took on a golden gleam. In autumn, gentle mists swirled in the circle at dusk. And in winter, a hush of snow muffled every sound. Through it all, the stones stood unwavering, patient, ancient, offering their silent watch to any who approached with an open heart. Aveline never stopped listening to their whispers. Sometimes she would linger at sunset, watching how the final beams of daylight cast long shadows that reached toward her cottage. Other times, she would slip out under a moonlit sky, feeling a gentler hush that lulled her into profound calm. From time to time, another traveler would stop by, each drawn to the legend of those standing stones. Aveline would share her dawn salve, a balm she had perfected to hold just a hint of that magical hush. She would speak softly of her own experiences, always allowing them to make their own journey. Many found solace, their troubled hearts uplifted by the simple act of standing in the ring at first light, feeling the world come alive in a quiet symphony of illumination. Aveline observed how each person left changed in small, hopeful ways. She liked to believe that the hush of Stonehenge was not a secret to be kept, but a gift meant to ripple outward, one dawn at a time. One such morning, she awakened before the birds, drawn by a sudden urge to walk to the circle. She slipped on her cloak and boots and made her way across the dew-kissed field, guided by the faint starlight overhead. The stones emerged from the darkness, solemn and magnificent. The horizon had just begun to lighten, a slow bloom of color spreading across the sky. She wandered into the circle's heart, found a soft patch of grass, and sat down. Wrapping her cloak tighter around her shoulders, she closed her eyes. The hush was palpable, an enveloping blanket of quiet anticipation. She listened to her breath, to her heart, and to the subtle hum beneath her feet that now felt as familiar as her own pulse. When the first slender beam of dawn broke free, it kissed the tallest stone. She watched as the beam traveled, stone by stone, until the circle glowed in the gentle morning light. This time, she did not witness any swirling marks or hear the faint chorus of ancient voices. Instead, she felt a slow, steady warmth in her chest, a peaceful certainty that the circle was always there for her, as constant as the sunrise itself. She placed a hand against the damp grass, feeling its coolness, and let a small smile cross her lips. The hush was alive in every moment, and she was part of it, bound to a place that seemed to exist, both inside and outside, of the ordinary flow of time. Eventually, the day fully dawned, and the gentle hush gave way to the everyday sounds of living. Birds chirping, distant carts on a road, wind through the fields. With a calm heart, Aveline returned to her cottage, yet carried that sense of dawn within her all through the day. It guided her hands as she mixed new salves, as she welcomed neighbors seeking remedies for aches and coughs, as she brewed tea to soothe anxious souls. Aveline had found a small corner of the world where earth and sky met in a daily ceremony of light, a place that offered quiet comfort and healing for any who chose to listen. In the decades that followed, word spread of the wise herbalist near Stonehenge, whose voice carried the gentle hush of dawn. Tales were told by travelers to friends, and by friends to distant relatives, of a kind woman with gentle eyes who invited them to stand beneath the prehistoric pillars and greet the rising sun. Her cottage remained simple, her life unhurried. She watched time drift like the currents of a wide, peaceful river. She felt gratitude with every breath, knowing that the hush she had found was something that could never be taken away. It lived in the memory of her first sunrise with the stones, and in the hearts of all who shared the experience. Now the day's gentle light begins to wane. The hush of evening settles around you, soft and inviting. Whatever lingering thoughts or restless feelings remain, let them now melt away. Your breath slows, and each exhale releases tension. Each inhale brings comfort. time itself stretches out like a warm blanket, inviting you to snuggle into its folds. Picture the ancient stones silhouetted against the last glow of day, tall and protective, a circle of guardians watching over a tranquil world. In your mind's eye, you see the faint swirl etched into the monolith, reminding you that within you, just as within the stones, there is a calm wisdom that endures. Feel your eyelids grow heavy. Let your mind drift to that dew-kissed meadow, to the quiet hush of dawn still echoing in your thoughts. A gentle sense of peace flows through you, soothing every muscle, stilling every worry. Your breathing becomes a lullaby of slow, steady waves, each breath carrying you deeper into rest. The hush of Stonehenge, the soft glow of sunrise, the warm earth beneath you, all these images become a tender cushion for your weary spirit. Let yourself sink into that cushion now, with complete trust. There is no rush, no hurry, only the gentle invitation to let go. Every part of you can soften and settle, like petals closing at dusk, knowing the morning will come again. Drift in the remembrance of ancient stone and quiet dawn, letting those whispers of tranquility enfold you. You are safe, you are cherished, and you are ready for rest. Sleep beckons with a gentle smile as day's last light fades behind the horizon of your closed eyes. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.